Thank you so much for joining us today. So we can't wait to hear all about this. We apparently all need it. So thank you.
Thanks. So like the screen says, my name's Madison. I'm from Doylestown Health, and today we'll be talking about low stress eating and the connection between stress and nutrition, basically overeating or undereating, like we talked about before. So first, I'm going to start out with a few stats. So, according to the American Psychological Association, 38% of adults say they have overeaten unhealthy foods in the past month because of stress. And half of those people report doing it weekly or more. So, those are the overeaters. And then we have, in the past month, 30% of adults report skipping a meal due to stress. And 41% of those report doing it weekly or more. And unfortunately, about a fourth of Americans rate their stress level as 8 or more on the 10-point scale. So honestly, stress is kind of relative to each person, but if you're rating it as an 8 out of 10, that's kind of sad.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
So something to think about. So today, I'll just be kind of talking about what stress is, how it affects your body, specific foods that actually increase your stress levels and your cortisol levels, foods that will reduce it, and just thinking about ways that you can counter your stress in your daily life. So, what is stress? According to the Mental Health Foundation, stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. So, it's our body's response to pressure and to regain equilibrium lost by the impact of that stressor. So you can kind of categorize stressors by psychological, which is your interpersonal conflict, your anxiety. It could even be positive changes too, your cognitive stress and your beliefs. And then physical, so food deprivation, illness, drug withdrawal, trauma, and environmental pollution. Psychosocial, so that's your relationship and marriage difficulties, having lack of support in your daily life, and also, of course, a loss of a loved one would be in that category. And then we have psychospiritual, so your crisis of values, your meaning in life, basically, and your purpose. So often it's triggered when we experience something new, unexpected, or that threatens our sense of self, or what we feel, or when we feel like we have little to no control over a situation. And our ability to cope depends a lot on our genetics, early life experiences, your personality, and your social economic circumstances. So we probably already know all of our own signs of stress, but it's always good, if you're working with the same people every day, you feel comfortable, your family and friends, if you kind of tell them, like, hey, I'm stressed, these are how I show my stress, it might be easier to cope, it might be easier to have a conversation that you're just a little overstressed. So some physical signs are headaches, nauseousness, indigestion, and other digestive issues like heartburn or constipation, having that shallow breathing, you're sweating, heart palpitations, aches, pains, even fidgeting around, and then behavioral, being anxious, afraid, angry, and aggressive. You're irritable, frustrated, indecisive. Even, I put falling asleep if you're so stressed out, fall asleep afterwards, and then an increase in smoking or drinking. So do y'all feel most of these symptoms when you're stressed out and that you're thinking about it? Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Everyone. So there's long-term and short-term. So short-term is acute stress, chronic is long-term. When we encounter stress, our body produces these hormones that trigger a flight or fight response, flight response. So short-term, your sympathetic nervous system triggers your adrenal gland to pump adrenaline and epinephrine. So your appetite will be suppressed, your glucose and fat is mobilized to fuel your muscles and your brain, your senses are heightened, your heart beats faster, and your breathing quickens. And then once your adrenaline starts to decrease, your HPA axis, which is your hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal axis, kicks in, and that activates cortisol. So we'll talk a lot about cortisol today. That's mainly like your main stress hormone. So your body stays on high alert once the epinephrine starts to decrease. So some examples of just acute stressors are, a random traffic jam when you're trying to get home, a random argument that you come across at work, so a conflict at work or at home, even something like that comes towards at you, like you get scared really fast, that'll increase your fight or flight hormone, or your fight or flight. And I also put sports. I am a Washington football team fan. It's kind of sad. But this weekend, it was down to the last minute when we scored a field goal that never happens. So my anxiety was high. Obviously, when it was over, I was like, oh, okay, well, what else do we have to watch today? But yeah, stuff like that. And scientists say that our HPA axis actually shares the same neural pathways as your hunger hormones, and so that's why they're thinking that overeating or undereating is very correlated with your stress. Okay, so chronic stress. That is your permanent stage of fight or flight. It increases your cortisol levels, your insulin, and it can potentially increase your ghrelin levels. And ghrelin is your hungry hormone. So it affects both your physical and mental health, especially your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and your nervous system. And cortisol is really important because it regulates your sleep cycle. It reduces inflammation. It increases your blood sugar. It regulates your blood sugar. It manages how your body uses carbs, fats, proteins, and controls your blood pressure. So when there's that constant increased level, it'll increase inflammation and blood pressure, and increase your motivation to eat and those cravings for the sugary and fatty. So examples of chronic stress would be daily traffic jams or daily arguments, daily work stressors, something that happens all the time. Someone mentioned, even if your family member's in the hospital for a week or so, having those daily stressors, that would be chronic stress. Any questions? No? Great. So, there are definitely gender differences when it comes to how men and women cope with stress. Obviously, both parties endure a lot of stress, but the way they cope are rather different. So I got all this information from the American Psychological Association, and they report that men think they are doing enough to cope, and they're less stressed about stress, I guess. They're less worried about how they're coping with their stress. And women are more likely to say that they're not doing enough. So on top of that, men tend to rely on things like sports to cope with their stress, while women try and find different ways. So family time, friends, getting a massage, shopping, praying, reading, seeing a therapist, kind of more active ways to cope with their stress. Yeah. There you go. That's a good one. And men are also less likely to actually report that stress has a strong impact on their physical and mental health. And therefore, they are less likely to try different ways to reduce their stress. So in turn, men are more likely to be diagnosed with chronic diseases, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and they're more at risk for heart disease and a heart attack. And on top of that, women are more likely to turn towards food to cope, while men are more likely to turn towards things like alcohol and drugs to cope. So stress and the effects on your nutrition. So like I brought up earlier, you're kind of either an overeater or undereater. So that's what hyperphagia means. Overeating, and then hypophagia, you're undereating. So after a stressful period, the body goes into recovery mode where appetite is increased and those food cravings take hold. So metabolic rate will drop to conserve energy, and so the body is more likely to store the fat. And so overeating due to stress and to cope with dealing with stress. And it might be a temporary relief, but afterwards, that's where you get that feeling of being sluggish and tired and lazy afterward.
I like that you have alpha.
Oh yeah, which one are you? The person who eats too much or too less? I think you said earlier, like, this is me at work, and then that's me after work.
Is that like, that's interrupting, but like, because do you find that with like people at work, like you kind of eat less just because like you're working and you're focusing on stuff, and then at home, like you're at home, so then you're just like, I want to eat everything because I'm not worried about anything.
Yeah, so like if you're like a high stress environment, your stress levels are going to be higher, your appetite will be suppressed, and then when you get home, I have dogs, so my dogs relax me a lot. You know, I'm calm because I'm not working anymore, and I'm just happy I'm not working for all that work right now. But like, you know, you finally have relaxed after a day of heightened stress. I've actually talked to my therapist about this. So it's like you're at this level all day, and then when you get home, your levels drop to here. So you can't eat while you're at work, but while you're at home and you're relaxed, all of those levels go down. That's when you tend to like more not only just like make up for the nutrients that you have gotten in the day, but your body is like needing more, like wanting you to eat more.
What?
Yeah.
That's like me yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
I do it a lot, and it's really bad. And I mean, I was finding like myself, I was trying to pack, you know, my leftovers from work the next day, and I was realizing I wasn't actually eating my full leftovers. Like, I just didn't want to sit there and have a full meal, so instead, I started packing smaller, lighter snacks, just get through the day. You know, you have it, so you kind of have to eat it. And just when you get home, you'll have like not a bigger meal, but like a more nutrient dense meal.
My job before this was like super stressful. The highest stress I've ever felt in my life. And I never realized it until I came here. When I would come home from there, I would go right to the kitchen and I would open the cabinets and I would eat like crackers, anything. Really like binge eating.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't be hungry for dinner because I ate so much. And never realizing that it was stress. I just thought, oh, I'm home and I'm hungry. And now I realize I don't do that. Like I don't. So it's funny how it affects you. Like never thinking that the food was even like I never thought, oh, this is so comforting. I just like,
Yeah.
you know, I eat for 10 minutes and then like, oh, I'm sick.
I guess it's really interesting because you realize it's so connected to the brain. Like the brain, it's sending these messages. Like you said, it wasn't like I was associating it with.
I didn't associate until now.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this. I'm like, no, I used to do that, and now I don't.
Yeah. Well, that's good news.
So it's really, yeah, exactly. Because I put on like 30 pounds.
Yeah, because actually, I don't know if I don't think I've said this yet. Well, I'll get into it in a second. But you saying that you gained weight because of that, your body will like absorb fat easier when your cortisol levels drop and then your metabolism goes down. You're all relaxing. So your body's absorbing more of the fat, and if you're eating those high fat, high calorie, high sugar foods, it's like only gonna make it work.
Yeah, I think it was such high carb, you know, because you don't reach for meat. I mean, when you open the package, you're
Always the
like,
chips.
oh, give me a chicken breast, you know, you're eating Lance crackers, then I eat graham crackers. I was just eating like,
Yeah.
True.
you know.
So on the other hand, like I said earlier, 30% of people eat less than normal when stressed. So if you're realizing that you're losing weight when you're not trying to, like during a 6 or 12-month period, or you're having chronic chest pain, chronic headaches, feeling constantly on edge, that's when you probably want to talk to your doctor about your stress levels if you're not able to get those nutrients in and you're losing weight. So like I kind of said, try and prep snacks and set alarms if you're someone who isn't good at eating under stress. Set those alarms, pack healthy, small snacks, and those will definitely improve your mood, but just try to avoid the sugary, high-carb food. So, we obviously choose high in fat and sugar content. And once ingested, the food seems to have a feedback effect that dampens stress related to response and emotion. So they've actually done studies on rats where they expose rats to smells of their, like whatever they're in danger to. So, and then they put food in front of them, something like sweet or like savory and high in carbs or something nutritious, and they always went for the high fat, high calorie snack. So that's where that kind of comes from. And this can even occur when you're not hungry. So you're not needing those calories or anything, you're just choosing to eat. And this can be exacerbated in people that are overweight and obese compared to lean individuals, and also people who strictly control their food intake. Your stress overrides that conscious control and leads to overeating of those restricted foods. And this can also lead to a lot of digestive issues like irritable bowel syndrome if you're eating the high fat, high sugar all the time when you're stressed out. And this will be something that you guys can take home too. Is it physical hunger or emotional hunger? So emotional hunger, it tends to hit quickly and suddenly, while that physical hunger is a more gradual feeling of hunger. When you're emotionally hungry, you're craving something specific or some junk food. While when you're physically hungry, you'll eat anything. And emotional hunger, that also includes mindless eating and snacking. And your emotional hunger comes from your brain, while your physical hunger comes from your stomach. So next time, if you are stressed out or you want to grab that junk food, are you actually hungry? Do you actually want this? Or is this something that you're just craving? Obviously, from time to time, it's good. I give into my sweet tooth all the time. But having a constant, chip or white cracker, something like that, candy, you'll always end up reaching for that without thinking about it. So we all know stress affects not just, what we eat, but it affects all of our systems. So we have talked a lot about gut health. Stress can affect this brain-gut communication and trigger pain, bloating, vomiting, and other discomfort. The bacteria in our gut can also influence your gut and brain health and impact our ability to think, and it also affects our emotion. I think a lot more information about recently about gut and how important it is to keep your bacteria happy and your stomach to keep your brain happy too. Mainly because stress can also increase the severity of your heartburn and gastric distress, but it can also lead to chronic, it can also lead to conditions like irritable bowel syndrome and also stomach ulcers. So sleep, it's important for everything, basically, and stress can make it hard to sleep and can also affect the quality of your sleep. So not just you're getting shorter sleep, but you're not getting that good REM and sleep that you need. It can disrupt your cortisol production and other hormones. Like I mentioned earlier, that ghrelin hormone, there's also a leptin hormone. So your leptin hormone is your full hormone and ghrelin is your hunger hormone. When you don't get enough sleep, your ghrelin, of course, increases and your leptin decreases. So you don't feel that feeling of fullness like you normally would on a normal hour of sleep. So stress is also linked to many physical and mental health conditions like chronic fatigue, metabolic disorders like diabetes, obesity, depression, and eating disorders. And like I said, it can affect all systems of your body, so your reproductive system, your musculoskeletal system, and your respiratory system. So if you're having issues of chronic stress, definitely go see your doctor and see how they can help you kind of combat this. So, who's at risk for overeating due to stress? So, people who naturally have higher levels of cortisol, or who have a higher spike in cortisol when you are stressed. It leads to that snack and response stressors over people who have a lower cortisol response. And obviously, you would have to talk with your doctor about seeing how you can get your cortisol levels tested. And
I would say one thing too, it would align with that. Menopause has a lot to do with that too. So hormones in women, because that's something that I kind of like worked a little bit with. And naturally, women as you age have a higher level of cortisol. So that also influences some of that that stuff too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And people who have a well-balanced diet are less likely to be stressed and also less likely to show significant effects of stress. But if you're someone who is a restricted eater, stress can override that control and may lead to overeating. But also healthy people who exhibit increased cortisol reactivity in response to stress have greater abdominal obesity, along with people who have high job and high life stress daily. Low socioeconomic status and job pressures are two indicators of chronic stress and have been associated with greater levels of abdominal obesity. So why that's important, if you're gaining weight just in your abdomen, that's where all your important organs are. If you have too much fat just sitting on those important organs, it'll make them work harder and you're more prone to getting those chronic diseases. So if you're already overweight or obese, you're more at risk because you have those higher levels of insulin already. And something that you might not think about, but it can be a learned behavior of emotional eating. So if your parents gave you a sweet treat after a rough day at school, or even celebrating something good, that might be something that you turn to, and instead of having one cookie, you have like a box of cookies at this point. So that's also something to think about. And then someone who has a hard time compartmentalizing and dealing with their emotions. So there's a lack of stress management in their life, and they just tend to overeat or turn to alcohol or drugs. So the bad stuff. Sugar, of course. You know, your snack bars, cereals, pastries, fruity yogurts. Cortisol is released when you're stressed, obviously, which manages your blood sugar. Eating those sugary foods will increase the cortisol even more to balance that blood sugar. So your blood sugar is already high. It's going to get even higher if you're eating those sugary foods while you're stressed. And it can give you weird mood swings. And then, from your sugar high, you also have those lows where you feel just tired and irritable. The higher levels of cortisol can also cause sleep issues, decrease immune response, headaches, and even more unhealthy. The second one is those simple processed, whatever you want to call it, refined carbs. White rice, white bread, white pasta, all of that really should be avoided anyways because there's no nutritional value in processed refined carbs. And not only will it raise your blood sugar, but they're also packed with sodium. So that makes your body retain more water, which makes your heart beat faster, which makes you have high blood pressure. So it's just an awful cycle. And then alcohol, it can increase the production of hormones that will leave you feeling more anxious and more stressed. I'm not saying you can't have like a glass of wine every night, but if you have more than that, it will increase your blood pressure and your heart rate. And sometimes if you go out for a cocktail, those can be packed with sugar. So alcohol also disrupts your gut microbiome and increases inflammation within your body. And it also disrupts healthy sleep. So though a lot of people think, it'll make you fall asleep easier, you're not getting that good quality. Caffeine, we all probably drink coffee or tea or something of the sort. Anything past 2 cups can raise your stress hormones and increase inflammation, along with your blood pressure and your heart rate. Anything 2 cups and below are probably fine. And then high saturated fat foods, those kind of go hand in hand with the carbs. So your pizza, your frozen meals, anything like that, they have high sugar, high saturated fat, obviously, and a lot of preservatives like salt. So try and avoid those daily, but also thinking about if you're stressed out, try and not go for those. And then soda, we all know, it has a lot of extra sugar and caffeine in it, but also those dark colored sodas have phosphoric acid in them, which actually competes with magnesium absorption. And magnesium helps with anxiety and stress, so it'll fight off that magnesium absorption. But then also carbonation in soda and other carbonated beverages will definitely affect your happy gut. So if you're already stressed out, drinking a soda will definitely upset your stomach even more if you're the type of person to have stomach issues when you're stressed out. So now that I've talked about a lot of sad and bad things, let's talk about some good foods. So foods that are high in B12, that helps metabolize cortisol. So your beef, chicken, eggs, fortified cereal, your nutritional yeast, and organ meats all have a good amount of B12 in them. Your omega-3 fatty acids, those help reduce anxiety. So that's your avocados, your chia and flax seeds, mackerel, salmon, a lot of other fish too, and olive oil and walnuts. And magnesium, that reduces inflammation, it helps metabolize cortisol, and also relaxes the body. So avocados, bananas, dark chocolate, spinach, pumpkin seeds. You can find a lot of these in supplement form, but it's pretty easy. Like you can see, it's pretty easy to get your levels that you need. But if you think that you may need more, talk to your doctor first before taking any sort of supplement. Protein also helps reduce inflammation, but it also helps keep you full. So those almonds, lean beef, chicken, eggs, lentils, quinoa, and salmon. And we talked about being gut healthy, so the gut healthy foods help balance your blood sugar and reduce your cholesterol too. That's your Greek yogurt with no sugar added. Kefir, kimchi, kombucha, and sauerkraut. And then if you're the type of person who kind of likes to follow a diet, across the board, the Mediterranean diet is a great diet to follow. It's good if you have high blood pressure, any sort of heart problems. That really focuses on fish, poultry, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats. But at the end of the day, just try and switch to more whole foods, especially when you're stressed out. So try not to get those packaged and processed foods. So it's not just eating. You have to counter stress in other ways. So recognize what triggers your stress and when it's a problem. So if you need to start a journal if you're stressed, if you are currently stressed, write down what it was on a scale of 1 to 10. How stressed were you and what you were doing to combat that stress. If you're not someone who likes to journal, maybe you can seek therapy. They can also help out with stress, different methods on how to combat your stress, different relaxation and meditation methods. We've talked about this a lot, paying attention to snacking habits, especially after work. If you like to have snacks at work, what are those snacks? What are you putting what are you putting in front of you? Start off and eat a healthy breakfast that can help, stabilize your blood sugar throughout the day, but also it will keep you full so you may not stress as much. Make sure you have those supportive relationships in your life and no one that is causing you stress. I know that's easier said than done, but maybe find some ways to cope with that stress too. Exercise and eat well, 150 minutes of aerobic activity a week. Even going on a walk for 15 minutes will raise those happy hormones in your body and you'll feel good, and that can easily reduce your stress. Think HALT, which is, are you hungry, are you angry, are you lonely, or are you tired? So if you're about to reach for a snack, whether good or bad, why are you eating it? So that mindful eating, I have a little infographic here. Mindful eating is super important just day to day and not just, sorry, the mouth moving, not just when it comes to stress, but make sure you're not rushing what you're eating, you're enjoying your food, you're sitting, you're not multitasking. Like, I know I'm definitely bad about eating and working at the same time. Make sure you're drinking water, and also respect your body and your health. Before you put something in your mouth, why are you eating it? What do you want to get out of it? Is it giving you nutrients that you take? And I know that's easier said than done. I'm someone who has been working on mindful eating. I've been working on it so much. I thought Thanksgiving I was gonna, say no to a lot of things, and I found out I could not say no to a lot of things. So maybe next year. But just thinking about what you are putting in your body and why. But also go easy on yourself. I know a lot of stressors in our life, we feel like it's all consuming and it's never going to end. But just know that it will end, and just go easy. So the main takeaway, I get there, is eating foods that are good for stress isn't the end all be all. You need to have some stress management, but also sleep really well. So find what works for you. If that's meditation, if that's journaling, if that's going outside, exercising, making new friends or connecting socially. Prioritizing your stress management will help, and it's not just eating a lot of B12. So it's important. So, you guys, any questions?
So I'm just going to stop the recording and